TikTok may soon disappear, and its alternative is so much worse. Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. Hey, before we get started, I want to thank everyone who's still going strong with Operation Honeypot. Be sure to like this video and leave a comment with the honeypot emoji below. And stick around until the end of the video because I have some very interesting updates on the operation, including a response from YouTube. Well, folks, it's finally happening. On January 19th, TikTok will, in all likelihood, be officially banned in the United States. This comes as a result of the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary-Controlled Applications Act, which was signed into law by President Biden back in April. The law points to concerns over national security and the privacy of TikTok's users. TikTok is owned by the Chinese company ByteDance, and like all companies in China, they are required to cooperate with the CCP's intelligence agencies. This includes giving the CCP access to users' personal data. According to one former ByteDance employee, China used this backdoor access to target pro-democracy activists in Hong Kong. While ByteDance denies these claims, cases like this were enough to spook governments around the world. TikTok has been banned on government devices in the US, Canada, Australia, India, Pakistan, Taiwan, the European Parliament, and more. India banned TikTok outright in 2020, and the US is following suit. Of course, ByteDance could avoid the shutdown by choosing to sell off their American operations. News started floating around that China was considering handing the keys to Elon Musk, though TikTok called the reports pure fiction. Which, honestly, that's fine. We probably don't need to hand the entire internet over to one guy. Maybe he'd be willing to settle for buying You're the Man Now, Dog and Homestar Runner. But ByteDance has been reluctant to sell TikTok, maybe because they don't want anyone to know what's really inside their algorithm. Now, to be clear, this ban won't make it illegal for Americans to use TikTok. You won't go to jail having it on your phone and scrolling through its endless feed of digital slop. It'll just put your brain in jail. No, instead, this law will just make it a lot harder to access TikTok. It'll disappear from app stores and no longer receive updates, meaning that over time, functionally, the app will degrade until it becomes unusable. There are ways around this. Users could download a third-party app or use a VPN, but for most casual users, this is the end. Or you could choose the third option, switch to RedNote. Americans are flocking to RedNote ahead of the TikTok ban, with the app reaching #1 on the App Store. Based out of Shanghai, RedNote is half TikTok, half Instagram, and all CCP shenanigans. RedNote is called Xiaohongshu in Chinese, which actually translates to Little Red Book. Yes, the same Little Red Book of Chairman Mao's communist writings that people touted during the Cultural Revolution that killed millions of people. But maybe the name is just a coincidence. In large part, Xiaohongshu, aka RedNote, is a place for shopping and travel, two things you were actually not allowed to do under Chairman Mao. Naturally, RedNote has a lot of what you'd expect from a Chinese e-commerce site. Click farming, bogus product reviews, misleading images, and it even drew the attention of Chinese authorities for hosting underwear ads featuring suggestive pictures of young girls. Yeah, the CCP knows it's wrong to exploit young girls. Unless they're using rape as a form of torture against ethnic Uyghur girls, then it's fine. But the main issue with RedNote isn't the scams or even the Chinese government stealing your data. It's the willingness of many Americans to be brainwashed purely out of spite.
It is impossible to underestimate how little I care that the Chinese has my data. I will suck on a tampon and overnight it to the CCP, okay? I do not care.
Please don't do that. Also, you really don't want the CCP to have all your personal data. Someday, you'll reap the horrible, horrible consequences. But there are other reasons Americans are flocking to RedNote too. Some claim RedNote is undoing decades of Western propaganda. What propaganda is that, you may ask? I doubt RedNote's new and mostly young progressive audience means LGBT content, which China keeps a tight lid on. Perhaps they mean Western propaganda about Chinese communist atrocities like the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre. One user quickly found out that posting about it led to the immediate termination of their account. In fact, RedNote censors thousands of sensitive topics, including a list of 546 nicknames for Xi Jinping alone. So yeah, feel free to post about how much America sucks, just don't step on the CCP's toes. And for a nice change of pace, forget all that American anti-China propaganda and enjoy some revolutionary communist propaganda instead, like these sweet vaporwave edits of Maoist propaganda films, or glowing send-ups to alleged murderer Luigi Mangione, including cosplay. Some Chinese users are even telling their American guests, you don't need a new app, you need a revolution. Yes, that's what America needs. A Chinese-style communist revolution where suspected class enemies are executed in the streets. After all, it worked so well for China. Some Americans have even taken to RedNote because they think communism is legitimately a good idea. These people have never studied history, which is no surprise if they spent the last 5 years on TikTok. Other Americans, meanwhile, just want that yummy, yummy slop. But a lot of them, I suspect, are doing this to troll the US government. The First Amendment has been a focal point in the TikTok debate. Many Americans believe it's their constitutional right to download any app, doom scroll any feed, and hand their personal information to any hostile foreign government they see fit. So when the US government bans one shady Chinese app, they make a point of migrating to another, arguably worse Chinese app. This is what we in the business call cutting off your nose to spite your face. But why all this reckless abandon? Why do Americans feel they have nothing to lose by signing on with some strange Chinese company they know almost nothing about? Well, it boils down to a crisis in credibility. Public trust in America's institutions have plummeted from the government, media, and universities, just to name a few. COVID especially hit everyone hard. But it wouldn't be accurate to say Americans have become more suspicious in general. Instead, it's created an information problem. A floodgate has been opened for all sorts of bogus narratives across the internet. Young Americans in particular trust social media about as much as they trust mainstream news. And if some random fitness blogger in Romania can carry as much weight as C-SPAN, well then who knows what to believe. Some even take it as a rule that whatever the government or media says to do, you should do the opposite. For example, you probably shouldn't be eating 6 to 11 servings of bread every day, as per the USDA's recommendations back in the 90s. But on the other hand, you also probably shouldn't do the exact opposite and eat a jar of rotten beef you've been keeping on your shelf for over a year. It's all about balance. But honestly, can you really blame people for coming to such wild conclusions? We've all had moments that made us question what the media was telling us. The Iraq War, the 2008 financial crisis, an offhand joke on The Simpsons that came true and saw Donald Trump elected president not once but twice. Who needs conspiracy theories when reality itself is trying to drive you insane? So sure, give all your information to a Chinese company and spend your nights scrolling through communist propaganda. But don't be surprised when it turns out the cure is worse than the disease. My point is just try to keep your head. Discern, be rational. Don't just glom onto something because you want it to be true. And don't take a position merely out of spite. If America is to have trust in its institutions again, it needs to have an informed populace who can demand accountability. Otherwise, we'll all be doing viral dances with Chinese characteristics. Now I want to give you an update on Operation Honeypot. Last week, I launched this video exposing how YouTube mysteriously and suddenly cut off more than half of China Uncensored's viewership since early November. Meanwhile, Chinese propaganda videos keep showing up in your feeds and searches. Then YouTube tried to gaslight us, saying our views are down because we don't have enough engagement. Well, we asked you, my amazing 50-cent army, to post comments using the honeypot emoji. And boy did you. I've counted at least 30,000 comments. And that even forced YouTube to respond, which I talked about in yesterday's episode. So what can you do? Firstly, leave one comment under each new China Uncensored video and use the honeypot emoji I've pasted below. Secondly, there's a way you can help keep China Uncensored censorship-free long-term, regardless of what YouTube pulls. Subscribe directly to our website, ChinaUncensored.tv. You'll get special access to content that's not available anywhere else, like premium episodes, live streams, and a community chat with me. And you'll be supporting what you love, me telling you the truth about what's happening in China, without any censorship from big tech or governments. The link is below. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.